Hello, everybody. Hello. Welcome, everybody. So glad you guys could join us. My name is Greg Leparati. I am Associate Director of Alumni Relations here at Baruch. Pleasure to have you on here. I see a few names that I've seen at some previous events. Hopefully everyone's doing well during these extraordinary times. You know, one of the silver linings to all this has been that we've been able to do a lot more of these webinars and career-oriented events for our alumni. And it's been great working with wonderful colleagues like Tanuja, who'll be speaking tonight, and also meeting so many of our alumni like yourselves who are on here. So yeah, a few just quick ground rules for the evening. We would prefer if you could keep your microphones off, muted, as well as your video cameras off so we could pay attention to our speaker. But please direct all questions and comments to our chat bar, and we'll be able to see it and interact with it, and that would be perfect. So a little bit about our speaker, Tanuja Ramchal. Tanuja Ramchal works as a career coach at the Zicklin Graduate Career Management Center. She is also a Baruch alumna herself, and her mission is to help people do meaningful work and get paid to be themselves. She previously spent a decade working for big banks where she led trainings and workshops across the globe, and her work's been featured in the Huffington Post, and she speaks at Fortune 500 companies. So with that being said, I now introduce Tanuja Ramchal.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Greg. It's always a pleasure being on these calls, and I hear loud noises outside my window because everybody's clapping at 7 o'clock. So,
I'll put up my my clapping
yeah.
reaction.
We're still clapping for the healthcare workers. So welcome, everyone. And we're actually going to be using the chat box a lot tonight. So I want to say you to just say hello in the chat box. Let us know where you're coming from.
Tanuja and I are both Zooming from Queens.
Yes.
So Queens represent. Anyone else, please let us know where you're coming from. It's always interesting to see when people join us from all over the country and all over the world even. We had some international people joining us. Yeah.
So Sabarim, Emmanuel, Ebony from the Bronx, Miriam, Gil, Ebony's from Brooklyn. Yeah. Liliana's Brooklyn, Amanda, Nina from New Jersey, Stephanie from Long Island. Yes, Queens represent. Samir is here from the Bronx. South Carolina, Jackie. Matvey's from Brooklyn. Dimitri, Brooklyn. Monica, good to see you. Jessica's in Queens. Yeah, we seem to have like a Queens majority here. This is great. So welcome, everyone. And I'm so happy to see some familiar names from some of my other webinars. So it's great to have you all here, whether this is your first alumni relations webinar, or your first webinar with me, or it's, you know, it's you're a seasoned attendee in these webinars. Welcome. Claudia's from Queens. Felix is from the Bronx. So New York is very well represented here as well. So yeah, thank you for being here tonight. You know, we know that you all have busy lives, and especially with everything that's going on now, and work and your home lives are all, you know, it's like everything happening at the same time. That it takes an effort to make time for these things. So thank you for being here. And tonight's webinar is on career freedom and fulfillment. So I'm guessing there's a reason that you came on to this webinar. So let's talk about that. Let's actually get into a discussion about that. What makes you feel most free and fulfilled? So type in the chat box, you know, let us know what makes you most free and fulfilled. Hi, Wiley. Wiley's from the Bronx. Claudia's from Queens. Welcome. So what makes you feel most free and fulfilled? Amanda saying Do what makes me happy and applying anything I love in any job. So what is that? What makes you happy, Amanda? Do things that I want to do. Jackie saying empowering work, but also time for friends and family and hobbies. And what does empowering work look like, Jackie? Liliana saying freedom to make my own decisions and take my own risks. Jacqueline is saying, Jacqueline from Jersey is saying when I'm doing what I want to do and understand the role I'm in and can be productive. Emmanuel saying reading and listening to music. Gil is saying working on creative projects and feeling valued for my opinions. Challenge myself. Jackie's saying work that is meaningful. Wiley's saying I would say knowledge makes you feel most free and fulfilled. Jackie's saying not worrying about money, fulfilled doing work that makes a positive impact on people. Gabrielle is saying helping others, a great team and company culture and diversity. So how does it feel to be stating that out loud? How does it feel to actually acknowledge that what makes you feel most free and fulfilled are these things? Monica saying learning and singing. Claudia saying when I help people and when I'm with my family. And what is it about those things that you're listing that feel like freedom, that feel that it's fulfilling? Manual saying distracts you from the world. So it's when you're doing those things, it's like time passes and you're in this space where you don't have room for those other things. Gabrielle is saying enables you to grow. Jacqueline is saying confidence, you have a comfort zone. And what is that comfort? What is it that you're comfortable in? Lillian is saying I have more control and dependence on myself and my future. So that trust in yourself, that confidence in yourself. So what are you feeling as you're saying this out aloud, as you're typing this, for and acknowledging this? Jackie's saying makes me kind of nervous, like it won't happen. So notice that, Jackie, just notice that feeling that comes up when you're honest with yourself about what it means to be free and what it means to be fulfilled. Lillian is saying honest makes her feel honest. So given that's what's freedom for you and what feels like fulfillment for you, what's in the way of you having that? Jackie saying the uncertainty of now. So why is uncertainty getting in the way? Monica saying a natural curiosity about how the world works. As for singing, it relieves some of my anxiety and I like hearing myself get better at it. In terms of what feels like freedom and fulfillment. So Amanda saying not being able to get a job I want because of the state of the world today. So just notice the feelings that are coming up there, Amanda, in terms of not being able to get a job I want. So what feelings does that bring up for you, Amanda? Gil is saying expectations for meeting requirements for my role now. And what feelings is that bringing up for you, Gil? So Jacqueline is saying that she feels the same as Amanda, not being able to get the job she wants because of the state of the world today. Jessica also agrees with Gil in terms of the expectations for meeting the requirements for the role now. Wiley saying ethical behavior. What does that mean, Wiley? Can you elaborate a little bit? Lillian is saying I'm prevented from it because it takes a huge leap of faith from my current situation. It's letting go of a lot that has been established now. Wow. So Liliana noticed that, right? Because there's a fear of loss there. And just notice what feelings are coming up for you as you're stating these. Miriam is saying, I agree with Amanda. I can also relate to that. So not being able to get the job that you want given what's happening in the world right now. Amla saying the uncertainty of now and being an international student, which makes it harder considering how things are at the moment. So totally feel you on that, Amla, and just notice the feelings that are coming up. Megan is saying, I need health insurance in my current job that my current job provides. So Gil is saying it makes me feel like I have to bring up this more in my meetings with my manager so it does not get thrown to the sideline. So Monica's saying family expectations to get a respectable job. So again, notice what's coming up for you as you state this out, because this requires, a level of courage and a level of honesty to actually put this out there and to acknowledge what reality is for you, what's really going on, based on what's happening on the outside, but this is actually what's also happening on the inside for you, in terms of your current reality. So one thing I want to say, if you've not been in a webinar with me before, these webinars are not meant to be intellectual, and they're not meant to provide you with a ton of information that you feel like, you're just getting information. It's meant to be more of an experiential process, an experience of where you're like going within. And basically that's how transformation happens. So what I often say to to the participants of my webinars, it's not so much about information, but it's about transformation. How do you come out of a webinar like this actually feeling transformed, feeling that something has shifted within you, where you're more in control? So that's what when I do a webinar, that's what I hope to accomplish with the people who are participating in the webinar, and not just walk away with information, because a lot of times you can walk away with information, but there's no real change that happens. The change really happens when you do something with it. So let's define freedom, right? So oftentimes what we refer to as freedom is an escape from feeling trapped. Like often I would have people come in, when they're talking to me and they say, well, I feel really trapped and I need to find another job, or I feel stuck in this job and I don't see a way out. So basically what they're doing is they're running away from something bad happening. They're running away from this feeling of being trapped. Yet when you're most free, it's when you feel like yourself. So a lot of you, when I asked you what does freedom feel like for you, or what does fulfillment feel like for you, you're talking about things that, when you're doing them, like time just passes and it's like you just feel like yourself, you feel fully like yourself, and that's what freedom is. But often the reason that we don't feel that free, or we don't feel that level of freedom, is because it doesn't feel safe, right? So we go for the safety, and it's like we create an identity in order to feel safe. And what we end up doing is, in that identity, we end up trapping ourselves. And what we end up thinking is that the job or the situation that we are in, whether it's I can't find a job, that's trapping us, when in fact what's trapping us is the identity. And here's what's good about that. The good thing about that is that now you have control over, whether you change at that identity level. And if you can change at that level, that's when, in terms of making changes or taking the steps required to have what you want in terms of what freedom looks like to you or what fulfillment looks like to you, it becomes very effective because you're doing it from a place of where you're living into an identity of the person who has that thing. And that's what we're going to be looking at deeply tonight in terms of how do you have that level of freedom and how do you create that independent of what's going on the outside. So you feel most free when you're yourself. So how many of you can relate to that? So Jacqueline is saying, yeah, absolutely. Amanda is saying I can relate. Definitely. Miriam saying I can. I do. So why are you afraid to be yourself? What's the fear that comes up in terms of being yourself? Nina saying, can you truly be yourself? And what prevents you from truly being yourself, Nina? And this question is for everyone. What prevents you from being yourself fully? Financial freedom. So there's also a belief there in terms so to say that I can't be myself and be financially free. Jacqueline is saying the people around you. Liliana is saying it's outside of the expectations of social circle. Elena, fear of change. Sydney is saying unknown, new environment. Nina saying biases. And what are those biases? This is great. This is fantastic, right? To be able to identify this, because it's saying that if the people outside of me don't approve of what I do, then it doesn't feel safe to be myself. So what I do is actually I hold back on who I am to please those other people, and that's when I feel trapped. So Claudia is saying one has to be diplomatic. Monica saying judgment of others. Miriam is saying not being accepted, especially in a corporate world where typical corporate politics occurs. So what's the fear in not being accepted? Because also, if you're not accepting yourself fully and you're not putting yourself out there fully, you're already not being accepted, right? But this is by yourself. So Sabram is saying my plan is different than the people around me. Is your name Sabri, or is it what's your first name? Can you just type it in, because I'm not sure the way the name is written, if it's Sabri. Okay, so Sabri is saying my plan is different than the people around me. So meaning that the people around you don't necessarily approve of that plan. And if you're yourself, what's the consequence? So Nina saying there's a culture, especially in finance, to look and act a certain way. Yeah, certainly, Nina. So I was in finance for about 10 years of my career, and I can totally relate to that. So what happens if you're yourself? What are you risking? What's the consequence? Not getting the job you want when there's an opening for internal hiring. Very missing. So you're saying the job is more important to you than being yourself? Is a job more important to you than being yourself? There's no wrong answer here, right? It's okay, but so Jacqueline is saying perceived to have an attitude if you speak up. So Claudia is saying when we have to pay bills, yes. That it's more important to have a job than be yourself. So Miriam is saying most teams will not want you on board if you are yourself. They have expectations, and I have to meet their expectations. So these are so also notice these things, right? Because they're also belief. If I'm myself, Other people are not going to approve of me. If I'm not myself, I'm not going to be able to survive in this field. So Sabri is saying being overwhelmed. And what's overwhelming? I'm like saying I can relate. When I'm not anxious, I can be myself and I like it. Also, my current financial position, legal issues related to my status have prevented me to achieve this sense of freedom that I want. Dimitri is saying, I'll be devil's advocate here, but why should we strive to be ourselves at work? How do you define being yourself at work? So how do you define being yourself at work? Like, what does that look like? Because oftentimes what we do is that we have, we go into work and we are not the same person that we are with our family, or we are not the same person we are with our friends, right? So we have these different roles we change into. So Sabri saying overwhelmed by study, work, family, responsibility all at the same time. Yeah, it's a lot going on. So this is, this is actually really good in terms of realizing that there are trade-offs, right? So we're operating from there's a payoff here. So the payoff, some of you said, I have to pay my bills. So I'm getting a paycheck from this job. So obviously that's the payoff that's coming from it. But the trade-off is that I can't be myself fully. And it's to acknowledge that, when we do anything, there's a payoff and there's a trade-off. And it's, if the payoff is worth more than the trade-off, of course you do it. Of course, that's how you decide this is worth, this is worth sacrificing myself for. And we've talked in these webinars about the word passion, and passion is that thing that I'm willing to sacrifice myself for because it's so important to me. And for everybody, this is, this is totally a personal decision. It's no one can make this decision for you. So Jacqueline, yeah, risk and reward, like what is it that, what is it that you're willing to, sacrifice yourself for? It's going to be a question that you have to ask yourself, especially when it comes to career. So let's go deeper into this and explore this more. So in unpacking the feeling of entrapment, right? So in terms of course, when we think of freedom, right, the opposite of freedom is being trapped. Like if you think of somebody being in jail, right, they're trapped, they can't get out of jail. So what makes you feel trapped? And oftentimes we say we're trapped in a job or we feel trapped in this career. But what makes you feel trapped is the identity you take on, a set of beliefs that define who you are. So what often happens, right, in terms of career is that we have in our heads, based on the family we grew up in, based on the culture we grew up in, based on the schooling we've had, an identity in terms of what success looks like. So perhaps, if you, in some cultures, success looks like me being a doctor. Success looks like me being in business. Success looks like me making, $500,000 a year. Success looks like me driving a Lamborghini. Success looks like me owning a house in the Hamptons. Success looks like me living in Manhattan, whatever it is. So each of us have this definition of what success is, right? And if we want to be perceived as successful, we build an identity around that. So this is who I have to become in order to achieve that level of success. And of course, we see that success, what lies in it is safety as well. So an identity is anything that follows I am, right? So if I say I am a career coach, or I am a student, or I'm a financial advisor, or I am an investment banker, or I am a CPA, that is identity. It's anything that follows I am. And what happens is that we get attached to those identities and we think that's who we are. And basically the identity we take on determines the actions we take. So for example, if I say, I'm a good person, the actions I take is going to represent that identity. And the most effective way to change is actually not to push and not to force and not to make those changes in terms of like the outer level, because we're always going to the outer level. The most effective way to change is to start to alter your identity, because when you alter your identity, that's when change is actually going to be very effective, because you're going to take action that's aligned with that identity. So one thing that you want to ask yourself is, how do you define yourself, and how have your career choices been aligned with that, and how do your career choices support that identity that you have been that you've had? Because if you're not feeling free, it's because of that identity that you're carrying. So can you see clearly what the identity is that you've taken on, or what you're aspiring to? Is it a career thing? Is it something else? So Monica's replying to something that I asked earlier, and she was saying that in terms of what stops you from, what stops her from being free is being perceived as having an attitude, especially as an Asian woman. So I want you to notice, like, what is the identity that you have taken on, or identities that you have taken on, and how those identities, which coincidentally, we've taken those identities on to feel safe, but those identities actually eventually become a trap because they prevent us from being ourselves truly, right? So becoming free, one thing I want you to start also to see is that career issues are symptoms. They're not the root cause. And what do I mean by this? This is the example I often like to use. I say to somebody, imagine you're having the shooting pain in your arm, and the pain is there, and you decided you're going to take Tylenol, and you're going to, look to alleviate that pain. And you take the Tylenol, and the pain goes away for, 2-3 hours, and then the pain comes back. And then you take Tylenol again, and the pain goes away, and then it comes back, and then you take Tylenol again. But what if that pain is really an indicator that you're having a heart attack? Right? And what you keep treating are symptoms, but you're not really treating the real issue, the heart attack. What's going to happen? I mean, the consequences could be dire, right? Because you're not really dealing with the problem at the core. And the same thing happens because oftentimes people are saying, it's like when I talk to people, they would say, oh, my boss is such a jerk. I've been in this role and they haven't given me a promotion in 3 years, or, I'm not making the money I want. And I hear all of that. And that's like, oh, the issue is on the outside, versus why is it that I'm putting up with this? Why is it that it doesn't feel safe for me to actually take a stand for myself? And that's what you need to look at, because that's the crux of what's going on. So in terms of like when you feel trapped in your situation, or when you feel like you don't have much control, you want to, first of all, acknowledge that right now I feel trapped. Right now I feel stuck. And just stop resisting it. Like, don't fight it at all. Just stop resisting that that reality, because that's how you feel right now. That's truth for you right now. And just label your current experience. I feel trapped. I feel stuck. I feel like I have nowhere else to go. And once you start doing that, once you actually label it, you're creating space for that experience. And it means that now I can actually, have distance between me and that experience. And I can see that it's an experience that I am having. But when I create distance, as opposed to being in that space of stuckness, once I start creating that distance, I can also open up myself to other options. I'm not just in the, it's like in the eye of the hurricane, and I can't see beyond the stuckness. But once you can actually see the stuckness, it means that you can pull yourself apart from it and you can start seeing your options. And then you ask yourself, like, what is it that's really important to me? What is it that's really important to me? What matters most to me? And then based on that, like, what is the next small step that I can take to make that happen? What can I do right now to make this, to move towards what's important to me? And that's going to be something that's, you know, in terms of how you handle the feeling of being trapped, it's actually going to be really important if you've been resisting and resisting and resisting this for a long time, because resistance is going to cause that the feeling of being trapped to just get bigger and bigger and bigger, where it feels that it's bigger than you. And that's when you start to feel helpless. And what we're going to be talking about is, how do you get out of that state? How do you actually, you know, feel that you're in control, as opposed to feeling that, you know, you're at the mercy of your career and life in general. So the goal really is alignment, right? The goal is to feel in alignment with who you are at your core. So when you're aligned with an identity that supports your vision and values, where you're meeting your needs, you feel like yourself, and that's freedom, right? So a career happens to be one vehicle to express yourself. It's not the only way to express yourself. It's one way that you express yourself. And it's also one way that you deliver value to other people. It's not a definition of who you are. Your career does not define you. Your career and your job is something you do. It's not who you are, right? So for a lot of people, they take on, again, the role they have in their career. They take that on to mean that's who I am. I'm the accountant. I'm the career coach. I'm the the financial professional, whatever it is, and they take that on. Your role is not who you are. It's something that you do. So I highlighted a few things in terms of this. It's, the identity, it's very important. Vision is very important, because if you don't know where you're going and you don't know who you're becoming, it's like, if I'm driving and I don't know where I'm headed, it's going to be hard to get there, right? Your values are the things that are really important to you, and the things that, if you're living your values, that's when you're going to feel truly like you're being yourself. And your needs are basically, what are the needs that you have? And everybody has unique needs. And are you meeting those needs, or are you not meeting those needs? So any questions you have so far? So the first thing that you want to do is assess your current situation. You want to be honest with yourself about what's happening in your career right now. So what's working in your career right now? For some of you, you said you're able to pay the bills. So that's one thing that's possibly, if that's the case, the situation that you're in, that's working. So what would you say is working about your career situation right now? So Liliana is saying work-life balance. Mm-hmm. So what's working in your career right now, or in your career situation right now? So Jill is saying, sorry, Gil is saying, I'm satisfied with the type of work I'm doing. Mm-hmm. And I feel like I'm growing. So good, growth is there. Mm-hmm. Emmanuel saying, expanding my educational experience. Good, Emmanuel. Justine is saying, the environment, I like working in diversity, equity, and inclusion. Mm-hmm. So what's working in your career right now? So this is also comes back to the self-honesty, right? In terms of really being truthful about the reality of your situation. Flexibility, pay, Ivy is saying. And what's not working in your career? I'm saying I'm able to pay the bills and support myself. Yeah. Claudia saying job security. So that's what's working. So what's not working in your career right now? So Justine is saying, I strongly dislike working for a law enforcement agency. What do you dislike about working in a law enforcement agency, Justine? So what's not working for you in your career? Gil is saying, I'm working as a contractor, but will want to be a full-time worker. Jacqueline is saying, I'm not working at this time, looking for my next career. I'm saying no growth, not aligned with what I studied and how I envision myself. Liliana saying there's anxiety of being laid off. So what are you afraid of, Liliana? Ivy saying not able to move laterally as freely as I would like. So stagnation and lack of growth. Justine saying lots of structural racism they're not willing to address. Okay. Rachel saying lack of fulfillment and not working to my potential. Claudia saying just living paycheck to paycheck. So just let this sink in. Let this sink in terms of what your reality is right now. And any new realizations for you? Anything that surprised you about stating this and putting this out in the open? So Nina saying in terms of what's working, I'm trusted, respected, decent pay and flexibility. Not working is that she's undervalued. Letitia and Donald are saying I don't enjoy working for someone and securing someone's future, not my own. So it's is that autonomy? Is that autonomy in terms of what's missing, in terms of what's not working? Ivy saying not learning enough or acquiring new skills. Yeah, so Ivy, the growth, you're not having the growth that you want. Monica saying in terms of what's working, taking personal development classes. Okay, so what's not working is that I feel like I'm working towards a career I may not even enjoy. Emmanuel is saying the uncertainty of tomorrow in the workplace in terms of what's not working. So Liliana is saying I've been aware of the pros and cons of my role, but I'm worried of leaving too soon and being in a worse situation. Yeah, so that's like the worst case fear that we all have, like where we put ourselves in the worst case scenario. And Liliana, what this comes back to is trusting ourselves. Like even if I get into a situation that may not be as satisfying as the one that I'm in right now, I trust myself that I will know how to recover. I will know how to get out of it. So Jackie's saying what's working is that I've gotten experience, but it's not fulfilling. It's time to move on. So you're grateful for the experience you've gotten, and it's really now your growth is being stifled. And you can have those two things. So you can be grateful for what you have right now, and at the same time recognizing that it's not right for you. The example I share, and for some of you who have been on my webinars, you've heard me say this, is like, if I've been wearing size 5 shoes for the last 10 years and now my feet are like size 6, I'm grateful that, for the size 5 shoes that I've had, but right now those size 5 shoes don't fit me, right? I have to actually get a new pair of shoes that actually fit. And it's not that you're not grateful for what you have, you're still grateful for what you have, but at the same time, you have to recognize that this is not working, right? And I have to do something different. And from that point, that you actually make the change. From that point, you move. From that point, you say, okay, so these are the steps that I'm going to take. Yeah, so life is, so Dimitri, that's perfectly right. Any career change is going to have uncertainty. I mean, life is full of uncertainties. And we suddenly say that, I hear everybody saying this, and including I say this, I say we are in uncertain times right now. Well, when have we not been in uncertain times? When have we not been in uncertain times? It's just that what has happened now is that things we have been accustomed to and things that we have been attached to and routines that we were so tied to, they have been taken away. But it doesn't mean that the times before this have been uncertain. It's just that we had those routines that we were holding on to. So we're always living in uncertain times. It's just that what has happened now is that the things that we have been attached to on the outside, for a lot of us, many of those things have been taken away. Even going to a restaurant has been taken away, right? Going to the gym has been taken away, and so many things. And it feels very disorienting to us. And that uncertainty is always there. It's just that we've not experienced those things that we have been attached to being taken away like that. So first step, assess your current reality, right? The second thing that you need to do is identify your vision. So again, as I said, if you don't know the direction that you're going in, like how are you going to, where are you going? How do you know where you're going? So if you believe in yourself fully, right? So if you believe in yourself fully and weren't afraid, what would you commit to? Sabri, correct. Sometimes you can put in a lot of hard work, but it's still not going to work. But what is it that matters to you so much that you're willing to risk that you're willing to put in the hard work, even if it doesn't work? So Jacqueline is saying that's the $1 million question. So Jacqueline, let's just pretend you knew for a second that if you believed in yourself fully and you trusted yourself fully and you weren't afraid of failure, of uncertainty, of rejection, of whatever, the fears are, what is it that you would commit to? What would your life look like? What would be different? So Emmanuel is saying to be more happy. So I want you to be a little bit more specific, Emmanuel. What does happiness mean to you? What does happiness look like to you? Specifically to you. What does that look like? Liliana saying I would go back to school and obtain the skills I'm missing. So I want you to imagine, I want you all to like just get present for a moment here and take a deep breath. And just imagine we fast forward to May 28, 2021. May 28, 2021, 1 year from today. And you have the life that you want. What does that look like? Where are you? Who are the people that are around you? What is the impact that you're making? How do you feel? Hmm. So I feel relieved, I feel blessed, I feel whole. Justine saying, I'll be working for an elected official that aligns with the values I believe in, that creates policies to help marginalized communities. Jacqueline is saying, relieved and happy. Lillian is, I feel like myself with a small group of people I work with. So I want you, after this webinar is over, actually to go and to dig a little deeper in terms of what does this look like? What is the work that you're doing? You know, what are the skills you're using? What is the impact you're making? And ask yourself those questions and notice yourself. You're going to see, does this feel expansive? Does this feel exciting? Or does this feel limiting? So can everyone hear me? I know Jacqueline is saying that the audio went out. Shannon saying, if I were fearless, I would move to LA and freelance, start a production agency producing science-based documentaries and narratives. So the next question I have in terms of like Shannon is saying, if I was fearless, that's what I would do. Who do you have to become to have that? So remember I spoke about identity, like if for change to be really effective, you have to change it at identity level. So who would you have to be to have that? So I'm not saying I would feel blessed and more fulfilled and more proud of my achievements. Jackie saying I would commit to starting an online coaching business. I would have to become a CEO of my life with absolute confidence in my ability to do it. So Jacqueline is saying I feel like I'm that person now, but I haven't landed a job. Okay, Dimitri is saying audio went out. Yeah, so it seems like, sorry, it might have been my connection. So Lillian saying I would have to be more hopeful and motivated again. Wiley saying I agree with Jackie. Okay. Who do you have to become to have, what's the identity that you would have to step into? I would have, you know, I'm fearless. I am somebody who is disciplined. I'm somebody who is committed to having what I want. So what's a goal, reality, and a dream, Will? I'm not sure I understand the question. Nina saying, I agree. I am who I want to be now, but it's discouraging when you depend on others to advance your careers. So Nina, what about I am someone who takes initiative regardless of what others do? So Ebony saying I will need to have more confidence in myself, step into the identity of being curious. So yeah, I am curious, I'm disciplined, I am a problem solver, Ebony. Great, great. So I'm curious, I'm disciplined, I'm a problem solver. Amanda saying I would have to have more courage. Liliana saying I would have to be more of an independent thinker. So Liliana, I'm an independent thinker. So what steps would an independent thinker take? What steps would a more curious person take? What steps would the problem solver take? What steps would a disciplined person take? And you start becoming that identity, taking steps from that identity, right? Because if you don't know who you are in the direction you're going in, you'll always feel lost. So we talked about, first of all, assessing your current situation. Second thing is identifying your vision, right? And where you're going, where you're headed. So I'm less saying someone who is not scared of taking risks despite the outcome and just focused on getting what I want. So I'm someone who is committed to my vision, Amla. Nina saying, yes, I'm that now. Jessica's, I would have to have more confidence in myself and be willing to take more risk. Jacqueline is saying, I feel lost. So again, coming back to, you know, where I talked about acknowledging your current situation, Jacqueline, and just saying, I feel lost. I feel lost right now. And acknowledging that that's your reality right now. And if you were to just acknowledge that and create space for that feeling to exist, what else is there? Like, what are you excited about? Like, where, you know, are there other things there that are present? And notice that as well. So Nina saying, I'm confident, consistent, dedicated, and disciplined. Great, Nina. Great identity to step into. I would need to put more, Letitia is saying, I would need to put more energy and time towards achieving my goals. So I am someone who is committed, Letitia, you know, and what does that committed person look like? How does a committed person act? What does that committed person say no to? And what does that committed person say yes to? Because it's important for you when you're committed to something, when you're 100% committed to something, it means that you're saying no to anything that doesn't align with that, right? And what is it that you're as a committed person, you're going to say yes to, and what are all of the things that you're going to say no to because they don't align with that vision? So Rachel is saying, I would have to be willing to take risk and be willing to look for another job despite my job security. Monica saying, if she was fearless, she would start a production company. To get there, I would have to stop hiding. Wow. So I am somebody who is actually putting myself out there, Monica, who doesn't hide anymore. Justine is saying, being a risk taker, dedicated to a cause. I'm someone who's dedicated to a cause. Emmanuel is saying, being more confident in himself. So great. I mean, this is great that you're identifying this in terms of who you have to become to have that thing that you want, to step into that vision, in terms of who, in terms of who you're becoming. So who do you have to become to have the life and the career that you want, and stepping fully into that? So Justine is also saying that. And why is it that we hide, right? Because this is also why we feel trapped. We hide because it doesn't feel safe to be ourselves. And that's the crux of the issue, right? Everything else that shows up, it's a symptom of that. And why is it that you don't feel safe to be yourself? Because that's when you're not going to feel free, and that's when you're not going to be fulfilled. And the whole point is, like, how do we remove everything that's in the way, that's keeping us from being fully ourselves? Because until we do that, we're not going to feel free and we're not going to feel fulfilled. The third thing that you need to do is to identify your values, right? So what are these inner values that are most important for you to feel alive and fulfilled? So I'll tell you my values, at least my top 5 values. Impact is one of my biggest values. I have to feel that I'm doing something meaningful and making an impact. Another value that I have is that I have to have meaningful connection. So connecting with people, and it's not shallow connections. If I'm connecting with somebody meaningfully and at a deep level, I feel like I fully like myself. Autonomy is another big value of mine, like where I feel that I have the autonomy to do things that I want to do and to, and to create and all of that. Creativity is another big value of mine. The ability to just be able to come up with ideas and to put things out there. And another value of mine is growth, like learning and growth, and always feel like I'm, I am doing new things and stretching myself. So those are 5 things that are very important to me. And if I feel like I'm not fulfilled and I feel like I'm feeling cramped, I go back and I check with one of those things, like what is it that's not present right now that's causing me to feel unfulfilled? Because it means that I'm not living into my values. It means that I am out of alignment with my values. So how do you identify your values? I mean, a very easy exercise that you can do is go back to a time or an activity where you felt most like yourself, where you felt most alive. What was it that made you feel that way? And you look at 2 or 3 times or 2 or 3 activities and identify the common themes that you see. So for example, if I look at when I was in school getting my MBA, you know, I felt like I had a lot of autonomy. I felt I was connected with people meaningfully. I felt I was learning and growing. I felt I got the opportunity to be creative, where I was like, you know, really, you know, in terms of class projects and all of that, I was doing like all of these things, and, you know, connecting with people meaningfully. So those values were present. If I look at something else, like me leading a webinar, I feel like I get to connect with people meaningfully. I feel like I'm making an impact. I feel like I have like a lot of autonomy in terms of doing that. I feel like I get to be creative in terms of how I structure these webinars. And, you know, like the growth and the learning and all of that is there. Or if I look at the way that I, you know, cook, in terms of how I approach cooking, I approach cooking where I'm not following a recipe. I'm just, you know, just going with what I have in my refrigerator, and I'm putting together these ingredients and coming up with something. It's my creativity. I feel like I'm learning something new in terms of how ingredients go together. I feel like you know, because sometimes I cook for people before the quarantine, it feels like I'm connecting with people meaningfully, you know, and the autonomy is there. So you want to look at those times when we just feel like time is passing, and, you know, and you just feel like you're in the moment, and you're just caught up in the present moment, and you're being yourself, and look at what is it that makes you feel that you're just coming alive, and listing those things, because those are your values. Those are the things that are important to you. And when you're living into those values, that's when you feel free. So do you know what your values are? Can you, like, quickly, do you know what your values are? And again, you know, after this webinar, connecting with your vision, connecting with your values, I would fully recommend that you do it. You're going to get the recording of this as well. So listen to it again, and go through this, and so that you're connecting with what those things are. So any one of you, can you identify your values? Do you know what those values are? Yeah, so Jackie's saying autonomy, creativity, community. Excellent, Jackie. So Lillian is saying helping others, so impact, and doing valuable work. Yeah, so impact, meaning, very important. Mm-hmm. And if those things are not present, you're not going to feel like yourself. Yeah, so Jacqueline is saying helping others. Yes, solve problems. Mm-hmm. So Letitia is saying when I've helped somebody resolve their problems on the job. Yeah. So making that meaningful impact. So fourth thing that you want to do is identify your needs. And it's basically, what are your needs that are being met right now by your current career situation? And what are the needs that are not being met, right? And knowing your unmet needs, it's a gateway. So it should be is a gateway to meeting them, right? So knowing your unmet needs is a gateway to meeting them. So some of you already said that, you know, your career there, it's meeting certain needs in terms of, like, if you say, oh, it's paying the bills, it's meeting the need for safety. It's meeting the need for security. So that's a need that's being met. But say, for example, I've had people tell me, you know, I'm in my job and I'm not growing. Okay, so the need for growth that you have is not being met. Or I'm in my job and, you know, the people around me are not like-minded and they're not nice. Okay, so the need for connection is not being met. And it's going to be very important to identify that, because through your unmet needs, you can see how or what are the things that need to be met, and it's your responsibility to meet your needs. It's not a boss, it's not an employer, it's not a career. They're not there to meet your needs. It's your responsibility to meet your needs. So if growth is not there, you know, something that I've had you know, people I've worked with do, like, so if somebody says, for example, right now in my job, I'm not growing, and I say, what else are you doing in terms of learning and growing? And they're like, nothing else, you know, I don't do anything else besides work. And I say, is there a class that you've been wanting to take? And can you take that class, because even outside of work, because that need is going to be met? Or if you're not connecting meaningfully with people at work, are you, I mean, is there like a meetup group that you can join, or are there other avenues that you can pursue in terms of meeting people who are like-minded? So it's not just relying on your career to meet all of these needs, but how are you meeting these needs independent of career, because that's on you, right? And it means you can do a table like this in terms of what are the needs that are being met, and put them down, and then basically write all of the unmet needs. And for all of the unmet needs, you know, looking at how can I meet these needs, because that's when you're going to start to feel that you're in control. Because if you're waiting for a job to meet those needs, or you're waiting for somebody else to meet those needs, you know what, you might be sitting there waiting for a long time, because that's not their responsibility, right? So make sure that you're taking responsibility for meeting your needs. But it first means that you have to identify those needs, and you have to see what needs are not being met, right? So I hope this part is clear. So again, 4 things: identifying your current situation, identifying the vision that you have in terms of who do you have to become to actually have that vision. The third thing is, what are my biggest values, and where am I in alignment with those values? Where am I not in alignment with those values? And what do I need to do to come in alignment with those values? And what are my needs that are being met right now? And what are my needs that are not being met right now? And how can I ensure that the needs that are not being met, that they are met? Or if I'm going to change a job, you know, change into a new role, that I have like all of these needs that are met, but I'm also going to be meeting the needs that are not met. So when I change, that's present, but also realizing it's not only your job that's, you know, that's going to meet those needs. Those needs could be met in other avenues. There, you know, are you taking responsibility for, you know, for meeting the needs that you have, as opposed to relying on a job or relying on somebody else to meet them. So I know we're just right at time, so I just want to recap in terms of your steps or alignment. As we said, the goal is alignment, because when you're aligned with who you are, that's when you truly feel free and fulfilled. So in terms of getting aligned, you have to be truthful about your current situation, and sometimes it can be very painful, and I'm not claiming that this is going to be easy for anyone, but what is it that's worth it? You know, what is it that's so meaningful to you, that you're willing to experience the challenges, that you're willing to face the fears, and you're willing to actually deal with them, so that you can truly be yourself. The second thing is getting clear on your vision of who you want to become. Identify your top values, identify your met and unmet needs. And again, who do you have to become to be in alignment with your vision, values, and needs? And this is going to be the identity that you're going to be stepping into. So who do I have to become? Anything that follows I am is an identity. So I am somebody who is committed. I am somebody, and what actions does you know, a committed person take, and taking those actions, right? And then it's what are the actions that that I need to start taking. And it doesn't mean that you have to list, you know, like where you have this long list and you get overwhelmed, but it's like one action at a time. And as you take action and as you move forward, you're going to start seeing things from a very different perspective, right? So the person who has taken the action to change jobs and has moved into a new job, they're not going to see life the same way as the person who is just staying in a job where they feel trapped. And from there, your vision may change. Your vision is not written in stone, because as you upgrade and as you make changes, you're going to see things differently, and your vision may change. And that's okay, right? Because you're evolving. But you're evolving consciously. You're not just letting the outside dictate your life, because that's not freedom. That's being trapped, right? You're taking control of your career. So that's what I wanted to share with you tonight. I know I went 5 minutes over, and I apologize for that. But if you have any questions as well, I'm going to be on the line, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have. But thank you all so much. You have been such a great group of you know, participants, and I really enjoy being with you. And you know, just the courage that you all had to show up and to share. I just want to commend you on that, because I think it shows your dedication to where you're going and what you want.
I'm going to give the applause reaction for not only you, Tanuja, but everybody here.
Yeah.
Thank you,
everyone.
everyone.
I just want to,
yes.
We'll do the 8 o'clock clap for the participants.
Right. Thank you, everyone, for joining and for your participation and engagement. Really appreciate it. hope you guys enjoyed. We will send out a recording of this webinar afterwards. I did want to some people had some audio issues here and there throughout tonight's webinar that I think were mostly resolved. It was just momentary connection issues. Apologies for that. It sounded good on my end, but everybody's connection might be different. So,
different, yeah. And hopefully the recording is going to be fine.
Yeah. So thank you guys. If there's any other questions, Tanuja and I will be on here for a little longer. And yeah, we'll send out a recording of this as well as some RSVP information for some other upcoming events we have in June. So hope to see you guys for some of those. I'm sure Tanuja and I will be collaborating on some more events too down the road. So we'll be in touch about those too.
Yes, I'm doing a lot of these webinars, so I would love to have you all on. You know, so my previous webinars, Jacqueline, I've done, I have a lot of different previous webinars. So if there's something specific that you want, just send me an email and I can send you, if I have the recording, I can send it to you.
We'll make it happen. Either between myself or Tanuja, we should have the recording to send to you.
Yeah, so Justin, you're welcome. What do I want to say as well? Just like, don't think too much, because you can spend a lot of time thinking. We want action. We want to like step into that. So stepping into the identity.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And also what I was thinking, because I'm going to say this out loud. I was thinking of doing like a set of webinars, just breaking each of those things down in terms of identity and vision, and because there's so much to unpack in that. That we can go through, and maybe making it like a month-long series, because I also do these webinars with the Career Center at Zicklin, and you would all be welcome to join. So like doing a month-long where it's like going deep and just you know, having change happen, like you know, making this change happen, because I think this is a really good time for reflection, and you know, based on what's going on right now. Doing that. So requesting a webinar for financial freedom.
Oh,
I don't know, are you qualified to do that, Greg?
Myself, I don't know if
Greg is financially free, so he can.
I try to be. I don't know if I could lead a webinar.
Yeah. So Jackie, there's also the Field Center. I don't know if you've actually you're aware of them, but the Field Center, they are dedicated to entrepreneurship at Baruch. So and they're working remotely as well. They're advising people remotely. Field, F-I-E-L-D. So it's actually somebody's last name.
I can send a link in just a minute.
So it's Field.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Oh,
I don't think there's a time limit to how long the recording's available, but I've also not tested that yet. We've only been doing these so consistently since March, I guess. So I don't believe there's a time limit. They could expire after 6 months to a year, though. I wouldn't be totally surprised. Might depend on
because it's on the cloud, right, Greg?
Yeah, it's on the cloud, so I think it should last a while, but I can't say with certitude. So I would try to check it out sooner than later. I can look into that, though, and give everybody some warning if it's going to be deleted anytime soon. I don't think so, though.
So just out of curiosity, what was your biggest takeaway from tonight? Like, what is something that you're going to be integrating? So Liliana, yes, there's, you know, for each of the different schools, there's career coaching, career services. And if you graduate undergrad, you can contact STAR. And if you graduated with your MBA or MS, you can contact the Graduate Career Management Center. Or if you graduated from Weissman or Marks, you can actually contact their respective career services center.
Mm-hmm.
So Emmanuel is saying to think deeper about my values in order to achieve what I'm passionate about. To identify, not to think deeper about your values, to identify your values, Emmanuel, and see, you know, if I were to, come and have a chat with you, Emmanuel, or I look at your calendar and I see what you're doing, would that match with the values that you're living with, that you're saying, the things that are important to you? So what are your takeaways from the session? So Amla is saying, I think learning to reflect better and maybe help yourself better when you know how to ask yourself certain questions. Yeah, so one of the things I spoke about in one of the other webinars I did is the questions you ask yourself matter. So are you asking yourself expansive questions? Like, for example, I know someone was on the call earlier and said she's an international student. And I see this a lot because I coach international students all the time. And, they say, why is it so hard to find a job? Why, why don't companies hire international students? And that's like those are such limiting questions, which can feel like they contract you and it feels like you're helpless, versus as an international student, what can I do to stand out more? As an international student, how do I showcase myself to employers? So asking yourself those questions that allow you to feel like there's more room for you, and where you don't feel like you're just a small person in this sea of of employers that are not hiring you. So asking better questions certainly important. So Jackie's saying, making my values the deal breaker. Yeah, so Jackie, your values should be the standard against which you evaluate your options, right? So, one of the things, and I did a class on decision making as well, and I talked about this in terms of like, what are those values? And when you're comparing options against, your options, like, for example, if it's like, if I go to a restaurant and say I'm a vegan, and that's like something, that's one of the principles I live by, and I go to the restaurant, I'm basically going to eliminate all of the meat options and all of the options with dairy, because those things don't match my principles, and I'm just going to choose the things that are vegan, right? So the same thing, it's like when you know those values, that's when you can actually make better choices, or choices that are better for you. So I'm not saying, I think learning to reflect better. Yeah. Okay. So Justine is saying, get it clear on my vision and identifying my top values. The evaluating if the organization I work for aligns, or start looking for work for one that does. Yeah. So Justine, that's so important, because again, the other thing is, in terms of this, is like, we tend to put the value on the job that we have, right? We tend to put the value on the organization we have. When you look at it, it's like, if I decide I'm going to go buy and I've used this a lot, if I decide I'm going to go buy this cup, right? And this cup is, I'm going to pay $20 for this cup. It's because I think this cup is worth $20. That's why I'm paying $20 for it, right? So when somebody's hiring you for a job, it's because they think that you are valuable, right? They're paying you because you are the valuable thing. But often what we do is that we make them into the valuable thing. And it's where we feel that without them, we are not good enough. We don't have value. And that's when we start to devalue ourselves. When you realize that the reason any company pays you is because you're valuable to them. And when you start recognizing yourself as valuable, you're not going to have a problem being visible to people. You're not going to be in hiding, because you recognize that by staying in hiding, you're denying them something very valuable. And if you're denying them that thing that's really valuable, they're not able to, perform their function as well. So it's not necessarily about you and your fears and, how am I going to pay the bills, but how am I denying other people the value that I can bring, because you are the valuable thing that people pay money for. And where is it that I want to bring that value, right? And that I want to offer it. And first identifying what is the value that I want to offer, right? Because you can look at something, say, for example, I did a degree in finance and I have good analytical skills, but I don't want to work in a job where it's highly analytical. So I don't want to bring value to a job like that. I want to bring value to a job where I get to be more creative and where I get to, like have that level of autonomy and all of that. And how can I make myself visible to organizations and people who are looking for that? So Amla's saying it's helpful because I've been feeling helpless as an international student. Awesome. So Sabri's saying, what would be a solution for confusion? It's to, first of all, admit that right now I feel confused. So admitting that whatever that feeling of confusion feels like, and just starting from that space, like creating that distance. And what is the next step that I need to take? What is it that I, you know, that I want to do? What's important to me? So starting from where you are is also always going to be not fighting reality. Anything else that you want to share or you want to add?
Well, this has been extremely interesting, Tanuja. Thank you so much. As with many of our previous webinars, a lot of it is changing your mindset and how you think about things. And, you know, I think that this really helps our alumni do that. So thank you, Tanuja, as always. Thank you to our alumni who joined. I look forward to seeing you guys again at a future webinar. Thank you very much. We'll be in touch. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your week and weekend, and hope everyone is doing well. Thank you, Tanuja.
All right, stay safe, guys, and see you all soon.
Take care.
Take care.